Hey everybody, it's me. Oh, I should probably get the microphone over here. Yeah, that might help. Okay. Hey everybody, it's me, your buddy Dave, the host of the Dark Stuff channel on YouTube. And today's video is going to be a bit of a departure from what I normally do. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. But it does kind of tie into music, and you'll see as the story unfolds. I'm calling this one My Scientology Story. Stay tuned. Okay, how's that for a teaser, right? So, in addition to videos about vinyl records and music and stuff like that, the other topic that fascinates me that I spend a lot, actually too much time on YouTube watching are videos from former Scientologists. My fascination started with that Leah Remini show that came out a few years ago where she exposed Scientology and had a lot of former members on. Including Mike Rinder, who I actually remembered seeing on television years and years before. And I started watching all of these guys' channels. Rinder has one, and which, by the way, Mike Rinder is fascinating for a number of reasons, but not only because he shares a name with the main rapper from Run the Jewels, and I wonder how many people get those confused. You know, there's Aaron Smith Levin and all these other people, and I'm watching a video right here with a new channel I started watching called from Emma Thorne. She's an English woman who does videos about religion and stuff, comparative religion and everything. So anyways, I spend way too much time in this Scientology rabbit hole, and I kind of realized, you know, I'd had a brush with Scientology once, and I felt like maybe I'll share that story on here, and maybe someone might find it interesting. I hope you do anyways. I'm not doing this from notes. This is 100% from memory. I just thought of this about 20 minutes ago and thought, hey, why don't I do a video about this? In 2001, I moved down to Florida. I'd been living in Wisconsin for the previous decade and decided that I needed to make a change. And I didn't really know anybody down there in Florida. I knew one person, but I decided, you know what, I'm just going to start over. And I moved down there and immediately got a job with an entertainment agency. I had been working, I had my own record label and been working in music, and I got a job with an entertainment booking agency and worked there for a little bit of time. They dealt with mostly oldies, you know, like the legacy groups like Count Basie Orchestra and stuff like that. So it was not really rock and roll, but it was still the entertainment business. I left that company after a couple of months and started looking for a new job, and I got an interview with a public relations firm in Clearwater, Florida. Now, the Tampa Bay area covers Tampa, St. Petersburg, and Clearwater, okay? And I had just recently bought a place in Clearwater. Well, technically it was Largo if you're from the area, but the mailing address said Clearwater, but I was technically inside the city of Largo. It's sort of meaningless. Anyways, so I was on the other side of the bay. I got an interview with a public relations company based in downtown Clearwater. So they called me in for an interview, and I went down there, and I went to downtown Clearwater. I'd been living there for a little while and in Tampa, but I'd never really spent any time in downtown Clearwater because everyone says there's nothing going on there. It is dead. And that was true. It was a lot of empty buildings, and then a lot of, like, I guess what I know now to be Scientology buildings, though I didn't really know that at the time. There was like a diner, there was a Walgreens, and there wasn't that much else there. They were right in the thick of downtown Clearwater. I drove, from my place, parked the car in the back, walked upstairs to the agency. I met the two principals of the agency, and they were telling me about their history and about the company that they have there, and that they work with a lot of authors and this kind of thing, and that my job would mostly be trying to get authors that they represent time on the radio, because the way you promoted books back in 2002 was really to get the author to go on talk radio. That was the primary thing. Sounded pretty interesting. So myself and the two women were kind of shooting the shit, and they tell me that in the past, in the 70s, okay, they had worked for Casablanca Records. I was just like, whoa, what? Casablanca Records is the label that signed Kiss. Kiss was the first ever signing to Casablanca Records in 1974. Casablanca is largely known as a disco label, but they were the label that brought Kiss to the world. So for me, just hearing any stories about those days would have been fascinating. These seemed like these were going to be awesome coworkers that I really wanted to meet. There's also stories about Casablanca employees just having mountains of cocaine on their desk and they're just partying all day long and whatever. And I just thought it'd be kind of crazy. Obviously, they were older now. They were sober. They weren't, that the wild and crazy days from the 70s. But either way, I still thought we could tell some good stories. At the end of the interview, they say to me, we just want to tell you that the two of us are both Scientologists. Do you have any problem with that? Whoa. I was like, no, of course not. I'm a to each his own person. Because I really didn't have any problem with that. I didn't know anything about Scientology other than just the word, and that there were supposedly a lot of actors involved, like Tom Cruise and stuff. But I didn't really know anything about what what it entailed. So because I've always been a member of a minority religion, I'm Jewish, and Jews are about 2% of the population in the United States, I'm a little bit more sympathetic, I guess, to a, minority religion, or, not the group that's the dominant group in the society. So I understand that. Again, I'm not trying to equate Scientology with Judaism here, but I'm just saying this was my mental frame when I was in 2002, so 21 years ago or whatever. I was trying to be open-minded, and that's the way that I like to, present myself, and that's the way I like to be. I assumed Scientology was just like another sort of minority religion, kind of like Jehovah's Witness or Christian Science or, whatever. I don't know. I didn't know anything about it. Maybe it was Mormonism or something. I just wasn't sure. So, of course, I was like, no, I don't have any problems. To each their own, people do whatever they want. And that was the end of it. They called me back and said, do you want to take the job? And I was like, yeah, okay. Wow, that was great. So I was very, very excited. I started the following Monday. I drove down to there, and all I knew was that those two women were Scientologists. But again, I didn't know anything else about who the rest of the people were, what their clients were like, none of that stuff. So I get there, and on my first day, they introduced me to everybody, and they sit me down at a desk and give me an email, they didn't even give me a personal email. It was just like info at whatever the company's name was. And I'm leaving all names out, largely because I don't remember, but two, because I don't want anyone to get upset about it. So they gave me a couple of books from authors that they represent. What I remember about the books was they were sort of like skeptical of the medical establishment. Okay, so they were sort of alternative theories about medicine. Okay. Again, that's not necessarily raising red flags, but, again, I'm just promoting the book. I don't have to live my life based on it. So I asked them, well, would you like me to read the book so I know, so I'm more knowledgeable about it? This way you can take it home if you want to, skim it, but it's not really important that you read the book. I got, okay, that was weird. Whenever I'd done publicity for music, you kind of had to know the music a little bit so you could talk about it, but okay. So they set me up with a call list, and they give me a phone, and they're basically like, here's what we want you to do, okay? We want you to call up these radio stations and try to get this author some time on air, to do an interview, talk about the book, etc. Okay, easy enough. Now, my experience in public relations, again, it was with music, but when you're representing somebody who is not an established person, okay, if you're representing Taylor Swift, everyone wants to interview Taylor Swift, no problem. That's an easy gig, But when you're representing an unknown, you have to convince the person that this is somebody that they should put on their air. A lot of times, if it's somebody they don't know, the real thing is, well, okay, I have to get to know them a little bit, schmooze them, introduce myself. I'm the new guy over here at such and such, and I just wanted to say hi and tell you about some of the clients we're working with. Scientology didn't want any of that. Or I'm sorry, the agency didn't want any of that. They just wanted me to call, get the person on the phone, that the name was on my card or whatever. It might have been a system on the computer, and say hello, and immediately go to the pitch. Here's the author. We want him on the radio. Yes or no? And if they hesitated or said no, hang up, move on. I felt like that was a terrible strategy, because how are you supposed to get someone to do something for you if you don't even pretend like you're trying to get to know them or like you care about them or anything. But I learned later that it was a numbers game is what they wanted me to do. They wanted to, I had to have so many calls per day and then a percentage of how many people picked it up. So they wanted me to make call after call after call after call. That day goes by pretty unsuccessful. I'm not sure I got anybody booked or not. I don't even remember. The next day comes in, they have a meeting, company meeting. We're all sitting there and they're all talking about their numbers. Oh yeah, 64 calls and such a thing, and this, then I did this and this and that. And they all had their numbers. And I didn't have any numbers because, I mean, they weren't expecting me with just one day on the job. But it was just very bizarre to me. I didn't understand what was going on, why they were so obsessed with numbers and percentages and how many calls you made, how many people you reached, how many pitches you made, how many this, you know. And it just seemed to me to be not really the best way of going about a PR agency. But then again, I'm the new guy. They run the agency. Who am I to say, right? I mean, maybe I just don't understand how this stuff works. So over the next couple of days, they had me working a couple of different campaigns, and the vibe was just weird. Nobody was very friendly to me. They didn't give a shit about me. They just wanted to make sure I was making my calls and everything. Occasionally, I would take a break and I would go to the diner for lunch or whatever, or walk over to Walgreens or something and get a soda or something. But it just was a very kind of bizarre, sterile sort of environment. I did walk in one time to talk to somebody, and they were looking on the television at Kelly Preston, John Travolta's wife, who's a major Scientologist. I guess she was a client too, and she was on television on some show, like an Oprah type show. And they were talking about it, how they got to her on the show, and they were cheering themselves and everything. And it was like, oh, okay, interesting. So that's maybe a future. I can move up into promoting people on TV. Like, this sounds pretty interesting. One day, I think it was probably the third day or so, I wasn't feeling that well. I asked them if I could run over to Walgreens and get something for my throat. And they said, yeah, get some salt pills. I was like, salt pills? I was going to get like Tylenol or aspirin or something, you know, or, I mean, why would I get salt, you know? And again, it didn't raise red flags, but I do know now that Scientology is very skeptical of medicine. And of course, the book that I was promoting was, you know, about medical skepticism and everything. And so I was just like, okay, I tried salt pills. They did nothing. You know, later on after work, I got, you know, actual medicine. Tried that. Worked. I must have gotten a few guys interviewed. I mean, you know, because they kept me on. I wasn't fired after like 2 or 3 days. I kept going, but I was very, very unhappy. And I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why they wanted me to make so many calls, why there was no personal relations. They didn't even give me a personal email. I was info at, you know, I wasn't supposed to be emailing people later. And, you know, it's just like, it just didn't make sense to me. But again, when it's someone else's company, you do what they sort of tell you to do. On the fourth day, I was pretty fed up and just was like, this is not what I want to do. These people are very, very strange. And again, they weren't pushing Scientology, but when you walked around the bullpen or the main office, they had just bookshelves full of books by L. Ron Hubbard. Okay. And I found that more interesting than anything. I didn't understand how their study of Scientology was relating to how they were treating me and to their business philosophy, really. I learned later that kind of ties in. So on the fourth day, or the fifth day, I think it was the Friday of that week, I went to lunch by myself, of course, because nobody ever hung out with me at the office. And I walked the block or two down the street to the diner, which, by the way, all around that area, which were Scientology buildings, there were teenagers and kids in what I thought were just school uniforms. I thought they were Catholic school uniforms, but they were I think they were Sea Org people, or they were in some type of Scientology school, but they were all walking around in the downtown area. So I walk over to the diner to get some lunch, and I'm just miserable. And I'm like, this is not working out. I'm going to get fired. I'm failing here at this company. I hate it. I think I called my mom or something and was like, I hate this place. I'm quitting, you know, whatever. And I just went home. I didn't even go back. I walked back to the office. I got my car and I drove home, and I sent the two women an email. saying, I'm sorry, I'm just not coming back. This is not the job that I thought I was getting. This isn't what, I'm not comfortable doing this. Good luck to you guys. And they sent me this long, nasty email back saying that, well, don't imply, that just because you're not up to it. And this, it was just nasty towards me. They cut me a check for the 4.5 days that I worked. They sent it to me in the mail. Never heard from them again. Of course, 10 years later, maybe more, when I started hearing all of this stuff from Leah Remini and the Church of Scientology, and I went down that rabbit hole of watching all these videos like this and the Remini show and the movie Going Clear and everything, and I learned that there is something to that numbers and the reason why they do the things that they do were Scientology related. Just didn't understand it. Now, to me, it's just an amusing anecdote. And now that everybody knows more about Scientology than they did maybe 20 years ago, maybe people would have seen the red flags, or maybe when they said, hey, we're both Scientologists, are you okay with that? I could have been like, you know what, maybe I'm not comfortable with that. Although I still probably wouldn't have said that because that's just not my nature. But anyways, and that's the story. And then after that, I got a regular corporate office job that I loathed, and then moved to Nebraska about a year later. So that's the end of my story. Anyways, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.